Hi everybody, welcome to your first virtual online lecture. Today we're going to be talking about waves and motion in the ocean. This is the beginning of Unit 11. It is our new unit. It's about oceans. It's exciting and I'm excited for it. The first thing we're going to talk about today is rogue waves. These rogue waves are considered waves that merge to create a single exponentially large wave. Now, back in the 1800s, people used to think that rogue waves were some type of mythical thing that would occur maybe if you did something wrong. There are stories to say that French scientists and even naval captains saw waves that were over 100 feet high. People did not believe them that they were real, and they're like, no way, no waves over 30 feet, you must be crazy. And if you saw that, you probably didn't survive it. It wasn't until about 1995, after I was born, that people realized that these rogue large waves were a real thing. All right, so a little bit more about waves. Waves are a large-scale movement of energy through water molecules. Now, waves, any types of waves you talk about in physics, IPC, wherever it may be, is always going to be talk about the movement of energy. It's not moving water from one place to the other, it's moving energy while using water as a medium. Wave energy moves forward in a forward direction, typically towards a coast. And these water molecules move in a circular motion. So that means with a circular motion, they come back to the beginning. Therefore, the water stays in the same part. It is the energy that keeps moving. And most waves are caused by wind. There's some type of surface wind that is causing these surface waves to occur, and they can travel either a short or a long distance depending on the speed, length, and size of the winds. Alright, there are also waves caused by earthquakes, such as volcanoes, like underground. And we're going to talk more about that later. You probably heard about them. They are called tsunamis. Alright, so more characteristics about waves. Should be a review from IPC, something you've learned in middle school. I'm just going to talk on it real quick and we'll move on. So parts of a wave, the top of the wave here. Top of the wave is considered a crest. It is at the top. Alright, the trough is at the bottom. Sorry, my face is covering the word. Alright, the height of the wave is from the crest to the trough, as you can see here. And the wavelength is from the top of one crest to the top of the other. You do need to know what all these terms mean, and you do need to know how to identify and label a chart like this. So moving on, we're going to talk about the size of wind-generated waves. These are waves that are caused by wind, not by underground earthquakes like a tsunami. All right, so three things that you need to know when talking about wind-generated waves. The speed of the wind. How fast is the wind going? Is it 1 mile per hour? Is it 100 miles per hour? Is this a hurricane we're talking about? Is this your everyday gentle wind? All right, so how fast is the wind blowing? How long is the wind blowing? Is the wind blowing constantly over a 30-minute period, or is this a wind speed that's been going on for 3 to 4 days, maybe because of a big hurricane like I mentioned before, or a storm system, something that might be occurring in the weather pattern. And then the third thing that we're going to talk about is the fetch. That is how long this wind gets to go over a distance. I used to talk about speed, talk about duration, now we're talking about distance. Is the wind going for 50 meters, 50 yards, okay, let's use yards, half of a football field, all right, or is it going 300 yards, 3 football fields? If it can go over a longer distance, that means the wave is going to be larger because it had a longer time to force this wave to generate. All right, so we have speed, duration, and fetch, or the distance it gets to travel over a body of water. All right, so there are things called capillary waves and gravity waves. Capillary waves, they're a lot smaller. All right, they're typically at the surface. Surface tension, we talked about in Unit 1, is what keeps them together. All right, if for some reason the wind were stopped, the surface tension would just settle it back down. All right, gravity waves, they're a lot larger. They go over a longer period of time. I'll cover myself here. And they will go back to normal on the surface of the water the moment the wind stops. All right, look, we got a little guest here. Say hi, Tam. Sorry, he distracts me all the time. All right, importance of waves. Of course, always the important stuff. All right, so we have two main things we talk about when talking about the importance of waves. One, shaping the coastline. We've talked about the erosion of things through rivers and streams and how they help create salts in the ocean. Well, the importance of waves is they help shape the coastline. They erode cliffs. All right, shaping the coastline, eroding cliffs, you might think that's bad, but not always bad. It helps grind the rock on these cliffs into sand. You need to keep sand on the beach in order to obviously have a beach. The more and more you erode it with waves, the less beach you have. So therefore, you need these sediments in order to keep the beaches around. Number two, ecology. All right, it helps with the turbulence of the water, bringing oxygen back in, and it also helps move food and stuff through the water, nutrients that other organisms will need. Oh, look who came to join us. All right, so next we're going to talk about is longshore drifts. All right, this is something that you see at the shoreline, happens parallel to the shore, and these are the waves that you see when you're standing on the beach. They cause something called a swash to occur. All right, that is that really shallow, quick-moving water you see on the shoreline that erodes all the sand away. All right, and they move in the direction of the wave. This longshore drift is the thing that causes you to drift down the beach when you are in the water. You notice you get in the water at the spot that your car's in, and then you've been in the water for 5-10 minutes and you're about 50 yards down. This is what causes that to happen. All right, when that slosh or that water that you see here in the picture moves up, all right, that's the swash. It also causes a backwards movement back in. That's called backwash. All right, gravity is what pulls the water back into the ocean. All right, the wave pushes the swash up, pushes the water up. The gravity pulls the water back. All right, once again, it goes in the direction of the wave. Gravity pulls it back. You can see this here. All right, wave comes up. This is the swash. And this is the backwash. It comes back down. And the waves themselves are running, like I said, parallel to the shoreline. Parallel, perpendicular, parallel. All right. And that's what pushes you down the beach while you're hanging out. All right. The other thing longshore drifts do is they transport water and sediment along the coast. Like I said, you need sediment to keep the beaches there. You need water to keep things moving, stirring things up. We talked about that in the importance of waves. All right, but sometimes there are things called groins, all right, that are built along the beach to help reduce sediment transport. You can see that here in this picture, highlighted by the circle. Most people call this a jetty, but it's technically called a groin. They use that to help with the, like we said, this reduced sediment. So here, this direction is where the longshore current is flowing. And as you can see here, there is a lot more sedimentation building up here. On this side, the longshore currents are not affected as much because they're being blocked by the groin, and then the erosion would happen more downstream, and then it should allow a natural drift of water here. All right, so this is called a groin, and it helps with the reduction of sediment, at least on one side of the groin. More things. This is a jetty. You will see these a lot, especially in Galveston. This helps stop sediments from filling channels. So you need to get into Galveston Bay. You need to go to the ship channel. They put these jetties out. They're typically man-made, and they help keep a channel going. So sediment would build up here, no sediment here, and it will allow for the flow of water and the flow of transports to still continue to go wherever they're needed. Like I said, here at home, it would be Galveston Bay. All right, so this leads to deposition on one side and erosion on the other side. Deposition, erosion, just like we talked about in the rivers and streams. Once again, interrupted by a dog. This is my mom's dog, Tex. He's the same breed as Champ, but he's twice his size. He's huge. Alright, so going back to Galveston Bay and the Longshore Drift, there are things called a seawall. Seawalls are man-made. I had someone earlier this year being like, are seawalls natural? No, they're man-made, and they are used to direct the waves away from in maybe a certain area along the shore. Erosion still occurs on the sides of the seawalls, as you can see here. In this picture, you have your shoreline pretty much even with the seawall, and as time goes on, the line of the shore is eroded on the sides of the seawall. But here, where the seawall is located, the shoreline stays intact. This is a man-made, typically made of concrete force, that helps protect part of the coastline. Right? Typically to help save lives, save businesses, houses, etc. The Galveston seawall was one of the first of its kind. After the hurricane of 1900, before they started naming hurricanes, there was a really bad hurricane that hit Galveston. About 6,000 to 8,000 people died because of this hurricane. There was no warning system. There was no cool radar system that they used to tell you, go home and get out. So this hurricane just caught everybody off guard. What really got people during this hurricane was the storm surge. The storm surge, the big waves, they would come up crashing on shore, bringing tons of water with it, and ultimately causing a lot of death. I mean, 6,000, 8,000 people is a lot of people. Um, so after this hurricane, Galveston began the construction on the Galveston seawall that you see today, where you can park along the beach, go down. You see it right when you get off 45. And this is used to protect people, like I said earlier, and other things around Galveston. Right, so is it erosion natural? Well, yes, but why are we fighting it? So people are damming rivers. We talked about that in the rivers and stream unit. It's not all bad. You dam rivers as a source of water for areas. We had the Lake Houston. That was dammed so that this whole city of Houston would have water. Without it, you wouldn't have drinking water. So people are damming rivers, and that prevents natural deposition. And that was one of your CERs you did this year. Talked about beavers and damming of rivers and how it's slowing down deposition in other parts. All right, so there's not as much sediment from the erosion of rivers being brought down to eventually the major body of water for us to be the Gulf of Mexico. So you don't want the shoreline to be eroded as fast because there's nothing replacing it because we're blocking the rivers, right? Good, bad, you got to weigh your options. Do you need water? Do you not need water? Do you want a beach? Do you not want a beach? All right. Another reason that they're building seawalls is to decrease the erosion because island areas, coastal areas bring a lot of tourism. And with tourism comes a lot of money. So people are wanting to keep that inflow of money, keep the tourism coming. So therefore, they build seawalls and they build ways to stop erosion, even though it's natural, especially since the more and more dams we build along the rivers, the more lakes we build for water and recreation, the less sediment we have to rebuild and keep up our shorelines. To help with areas that don't have a seawall, we have something called artificial beach nourishment. So last summer along Galveston, they had this going on where they had huge pipes coming out of the water up into the beach. Most people didn't know what that was, but what they were doing is they were bringing in sand from offshore, deeper parts of the ocean in Galveston Bay, and they were bringing sand to spread on the beaches. This is called artificial beach nourishment. As you can see in this picture here, Get my nice little highlighter out. The beach is going this far out with the beach nourishment versus this distance without it. Right, so with the beach nourishment, it is bringing more sand, allowing more things to live on the beach, allow for more recreation. It is decreasing or reversing the act of erosion. It is very, very expensive. It says here it costs about $20 million. All right, and the effects of this artificial beach nourishment only last for about 5 years, maybe less depending on the hurricane season or the weather patterns. So about $20 million, 5 years, $4 million a year to keep your beach up. I would say that's pretty expensive. But this does help with the lack of sediment that is bringing down from the rivers and streams to keep the beaches around. Without it, eventually here, these houses would disappear because the beach would just be eroding away. Another thing we talked about longshore currents parallel to the beach, bring up the water and the sediments from the ocean. It's typically what you see when you're out on the beach. We have something that is a little more dangerous called a rip current. We've probably all heard about it, but don't know how it forms. So how this forms is when you have longshore drifts, longshore currents, right? They're flowing parallel to the beach, and they're coming from different directions, and they crash into each other. When this happens, they cause a natural push out into the deeper parts of the water. Is very dangerous and can push a swimmer up to 4 to 5 miles per hour out to sea. Most people cannot swim that fast, so it's pulling you out faster than you can swim. Most of the rescues on a beach that are needed are because of rip currents. And as you can see here, we have water flow here and here. When they conjoin together, they cause what is called a rip current. Better diagram. Sorry that my video's in the way. All right, longshore currents coming in. They converge together, come together, and they cause what is a rip current. If you ever were to get caught in a rip current, you do not want to swim forward back to the shore. You want to swim outwards. Get out of the current and get back to the normal longshore currents that are easier to swim through. It is easily identified if you're higher up in the air. You can see where two currents are coming together, and then the area between them where there is no backwash occurring, whitewash occurring, whatever you want to call this area. This area here is where the rip current is being pushed back. So you want to get out of the way and swim off to the side. Tsunamis, also known as tidal waves. These are caused by undersea earthquakes or volcanoes. In the deep ocean, tsunamis can move as fast as a jet plane, which is about 500 miles per hour, and can cross an entire ocean in less than a day. As the waves enter shallow water, or closer to land, they slow down their speeds to about 20 or 30 miles per hour, which is the recommended speed you should travel in a neighborhood. At the wavelength from one crest to the other, about 150 miles, very long. And the wave height can get up to 35 feet. Could get larger. That's about 3 to 4 story buildings. That's about Westside High School, topped on top of Westside High School, and the size of a wave coming to the shore. And their speeds can get greater than 500 miles per hour. Right, it slows down the closer it gets to shore. Right, it can, like I said, it travels really fast offshore in the deep ocean. The closer it gets to the bottom of the ocean, closer it gets to shore, it slows down a little. However, at that point, the waves can get up to 65 plus feet. That is Westside High School stacked on top of itself 3 to 4 times. It's a very large wave. Right, so tsunami waves, this is a little GIF, we'll see if it works. No? Okay, didn't, whatever. Right, so here is a better GIF. So it shows here an underwater earthquake occurring, force of energy. The energy of this is moving upwards, as you can see in the video. That causes the water to move upwards, and with the wind that is occurring in the gravitational pull, it is going to bring the wave towards shore. over time, over the distance, it is going to generate more and more energy. It's going to pick it up as it goes, creating a larger and larger wave until it eventually crashes into the shore.